We're talking about John Cena, and as this is the end of his career after 23 years, I figured we should talk about him a little bit because I am a hardcore wrestling fan. We don't do a lot of wrestling stuff here. We talk about a lot of cosplay, we talk about movies, we talk about comic books, but wrestling is a big fandom of mine. As I said earlier, I've been a fan since 97, and there was a stretch of my life where it was my fandom. Like, I went from Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, wrestling, high school, like end of high school. Like, I became an adult pretty much from beginning of grade 3 to like the end of high school was wrestling in my life. So I've watched Cena since the beginning when he debuted in 2002, and I've seen his evolution firsthand. And I just want to get my thoughts about different things about him because he has been at times a very polarizing character. He's probably been the most polarizing person in the company because I remember a day when everybody loved John, and then I saw a time when everyone was kind of mixed, and then I saw a time when everyone hated him. And then with most things, you don't realize what you got until it's gone. And then John went off and did Hollywood stuff, and then he would come back and he would get a big hero's welcome when he came back. So I'm going to break down. We're not going to go, career by, we're not going to go match by match. We're not going to go like in 2002, we did this. In 2000, like we're going to talk about kind of just the big things about John and what he's done over the past 23 years. Because, I think something that doesn't really get talked about is the 23 years. Because if you think of other people that have been in his shoes or shoes that he has filled before him, when you break it down time-wise, there's not many characters or wrestlers that had a longevity career like him. You had Hogan, who started in, let's say, 87, 88. By 95, he's out in WCW. So that's an 8-year career. When you're looking at Austin got to the WWE in 96. He didn't get big until 98. He didn't go until 2002. So that's a 5-year career too. Same with Rock. Triple H, 97, 98, he's in DX. Gets big of a career, but then nothing like 23. John is probably one of the most consistent, longest running characters that WWE has ever had. And as I said, I think the trajectory of his career has definitely changed. He's always, since he won the title in, I believe, 2025 or 2005, he's always been the peak. He's always been that main event John Cena. And I think when it's very similar to what Roman Reigns did when he came before the Bloodline, he was pushed and he was pushed, and people got sick of him. People got sick of being force-fed Roman Reigns. People got sick of that force-fed John Cena. But there was a big section of the fans that really realized, man, this guy's consistent. He's always here. He has got the work ethic of a Clydesdale. He is always doing something. He's always on point. This is not a guy that is going to come in and not do house shows. This is not a guy that's going to come in and, I'll work hard on WrestleManias and Royal Rumbles and stuff like that. No, he did a hell of a lot. And you may not have liked the superhero, as Rock called him, the Fruity Pebbles John Cena of the multicolored shirts and, hustle, loyalty, and respect and all that. But it was always him. And I think definitely once we got to the tail end of his career where he started to only do one show a year because of Hollywood and etc., I think people realized, we may not have liked John at points, and I'm not saying I did. I've always loved John. But when you look back, you go, he never wavered. When he easily could have. When he was getting booed out of the building, WWE and him could have easily went, we should change John. We should go that heel Cena like everyone wants. But they always kept with it. And I think especially once we saw the end of his career and we saw him going into the twilight, we really started to go, man, he just kind of just did what he wanted. And that's pretty ballsy to do. Because you could have easily just went, nah, that's not for me. You could have went back to, the Thugonomics John Cena where he's rapping all the time. It's like, nah, I'm going to keep doing this because this seems to be working in a way that people aren't really noticing now, but has given him the career he has now. And I think one of the big things is when WWE really started to focus on how much of an impact he was making on the youth, and more importantly, what he was doing with Make-A-Wish, which, if you're not a wrestling fan and you don't know anything about John Cena has made more Make-A-Wish appearances than anyone. And I don't mean anyone WWE, I mean anyone, period. Nobody has fulfilled more Make-A-Wishes than John. And that is something that I think it doesn't get overlooked, but I don't think people understand the impact of that. Because the Make-A-Wish Foundation, you can have every opinion you want about any foundation in the world and where the money goes and all that. And believe me, I've worked for non-for-profits. I've heard it a billion times from everybody. A kid comes in who is dealing with something that they should never have to deal with, whatever form it is, and they get to make a wish. And the Make-A-Wish Foundation will pretty much do anything. And they ask to meet John Cena and spend a day with him. That's kind of nuts in the first spot. But also, to know that John Cena has fulfilled more Make-A-Wishes than anyone else, that's got to take a toll on you as a person. Like, you have to sit back and go, wait. He's listening to kids and families talk about something that no parent ever wants to hear and has to deal with the emotional toll that takes on him. And he's never complained. He's done it with his head held high all the time. So, good on you for doing that. And it's especially good now because other people in the WWE have seen how much that impacts the Make-A-Wish community and the kids that are asking for it, that other WWE superstars are doing it now too. So kids are coming in not asking just for John Cena. They're wanting to meet, I don't know why, The Miz, or, they want to meet Rhea Ripley or Charlotte Flair or something like that. And they've seen what John has done and they're wanting to do it as well. And they're wanting to bring that into the WWE world and make WWE as the biggest Make-A-Wish Foundation fulfilling that more wishes than anyone else. So I think that is something that WWE is very good at mentioning it, and John's very good at mentioning it, and other people are good at mentioning it, but I just don't think it's appreciated as much as it probably should. It's sort of like a band, and I think Undertaker would probably be the best one to compare it to, where everyone has their version of Undertaker that they love. Like whether it's, the 97, 98 when he was the cult leader, or when he was with Paul Bearer in the original era, or, the Dead Man Inc. when he was riding the motorcycle. There was different versions and you kind of picked your favorites. John kind of had that too. When he first started, he was not Superman Cena. He was not, the Make-A-Wish guy. He was the rapper. He was the Vanilla Ice, but actually not the Vanilla Ice can't rap, but like he was the freestyle rapper who was going around freestyling in front of everybody. And that's what kind of kicked it into high gear with John. If you don't know, John started as sort of this creator wrestler is the way I would call it. Like he was a very generic wrestler. He would show up in shorts and knee pads and boots that mirrored whatever state they were in at the time. So if it was, Michigan, it'd be blue and gold. And if it was, I don't know, the U.S. football teams. But he had different gear made for that. And it didn't really work. And it wasn't until he was on a tour in the UK, and he was told just before the tour, hey, we're probably going to cut you because you're not really doing anything. They were on a tour, and they were on a bus with everybody, and he went out and just hung out in the back of the bus with some other talent and just started rapping and started freestyling because he'd been a rapper and enjoyed doing that in his youth. And WWE, the executives, saw it, and they said, do you want to do that on TV? And he said, yes. And next week, he came out and he started doing raps, and everyone was reacting, and that became his gimmick. He became the rap guy, and it really caught the whole WWE by storm. And I fell in love with him then because it was so fun to see him just rip apart his opponents before he even laid a hand on him. Then once he got the WWE title, he sort of transitioned into that superhero, the Marine style, where he, really saluted the Marine. Marcy says in chat, and he served his country as a Marine. Spoilers, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. He didn't actually serve as a Marine. No, that was the movie, was the Marine. No, he did not serve as a Marine. He did try to get into... Actually, let me take that back. I think he did do training, but he wasn't there long. He wasn't there long because he just didn't do well there. So I don't believe he was a full-fledged Marine. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't a full-fledged Marine. And then that's when after the Marine stuff kind of went away with the movie, that's when the superhero Cena came out. And that's when all the colored shirts came out. And he sort of became the, as again, Rock calls him, the Fruity Pebbles John Cena, where every other month he had a new colored shirt. And then after that, he started to get his roles in Hollywood, and he became somewhat like The Rock was when 2001, 2002, when he would go away and shoot a movie and come back and do a little bit, shoot a movie, come back, shoot a movie, come back. So I personally love the rap one because that was the first one that kind of caught my attention, but I do appreciate... I look back fondly at the Marine version of John Cena because I think that's really where he found his footing as, I wouldn't say the best wrestler in the world, because I think even John would say he's not the best wrestler in the world, but just an understanding of what I am and kind of understanding that I don't just have to hip hop. I can be John Cena myself and not just rely on the gimmick of rap. And it was a good time for him to figure that out because this is when the PG era kicked in. And WWE really wanted to change their image because back in the 90s, back in the 2000s, they were very, very R-rated, very adult. They wanted to get more towards that 80s style, which was more directed towards kids. And that was a tough road for WWE. That is a very tough road, especially when you've built in such a good fan base of your older fans who grew up with you. And I think this is I know a lot of people look back at the Attitude Era in the 2000s and go, I wish we could do that again. I'm telling you guys, you don't. You really don't. I have gone back as a hardcore fan and watched some 98, 99 episodes of Raw and SmackDown. They're not that great. They are rose-colored glasses, to say the least. If you watch them in a montage and watch the clips of the best parts, like Austin coming out on the beer truck, DX doing their stuff in the ring, stuff like that, it looks incredible. But there is a lot of garbage around those moments. So I would love people to start watching some of these old Raws and being like, yeah, you know what, it ain't that great, because it really wasn't. So WWE wanted to change. They wanted to get more kid-friendly, because especially when it came to a business standpoint, because with the Attitude Era and those adult themes, you can't really do much as a business because you've pigeonholed yourself into, especially from a sponsorship standpoint, you can't do, like, there's a lot of sponsors that don't want to deal with that because you don't know what's going to happen from week to week. You don't know if you're going to get hot lesbian action on a Raw, or you're going to get some guy doing a crotch chop and somebody flashing her boobs in the audience. You don't want to have your name associated with that. I think that's side note. I think that's kind of what AEW dealt with for a little bit. So having someone that needing somebody for that crown jewel, you lost Austin and Rock in 2002. You needed someone to kind of take the reins of that and be that center point who could be a kid-friendly talent. Like, even if, for example, Austin and Rock stayed, I don't think they could have done the PG era. You think Austin beer swilling middle fingers is going to work in a PG era? Not really. He did okay when he came back and did the GM stuff with Eric Bischoff and stuff like that, but it wasn't what it was in 98. So they needed someone different. And I think John was the first one to pick up those reins and go, I'll do it. And I'll do it well. And with the company trying to go with that PG route, he just worked. He completely worked, especially with, you could laugh at all the colored shirts and all that stuff, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. It was the best thing WWE could have done at the time, because with business, and well, I shouldn't say business, with WWE and other things like this, I've seen it especially with Kiss, the band, lately. You need to evolve your fans, because the fans you made in 98, who were me, who were 10, 11, 12, by the time you hit 2004, 2005, we're almost an adult. So what we liked in 98 is not what we're going to like in 2005, 2006. So if we hit that point, you're going to start losing fans because we become an adult, we get married, we do, adult stuff. You already have to have something built in for that younger audience, or you're not going to grab them. So by the time we lost Austin and Rock, they were kind of at a point where they were in trouble a little bit. They didn't have someone to get that new audience behind them, and John was the perfect person for it. Kiss is kind of doing that now with. Now they're going to be doing a hologram show and not do the live performances anymore because they're getting older and they can't do it. And I've seen a lot of Kiss fans online being like, this isn't my Kiss. And I always comment, you're right. It's not supposed to be, because the fans who grew up with Kiss, who are my age or my mom's age, they're not going to see Kiss anymore. They are getting older. They can't afford it, and they just don't have the time or energy to do it. This hologram show is something that has been proven in other countries and other acts, has worked and has brought in a younger audience. This is how you're going to get the next generation of fans to fall in love with the band. So that's my comparison between the two. And with that becoming the super scene and becoming the main eventer at that point, you had a whole new generation of talent coming into the Federation. Federation. WWE's going to yell at me for that one. Coming into WWE, and he helped shape not just the on-camera product, but the stuff backstage. And I think that's something similar to the Make-A-Wish. Doesn't get talked about enough, because back in the day, it was obvious that, the Ric Flairs of the world and even just the general talent of those days, you did your matches, you went, had a beer, you went to the bar, you maybe grabbed a girl, you went up to your hotel room, bingo, bango, bongo, you wake up the next morning, you're hungover, you go to the arena, you do it, rinse, repeat. John wasn't that person. John was focused on being the best and wanting to do more than just go and party. And I think based off his level in the company, you have an entire generation now that doesn't do that. They've interviewed people like The Undertaker on his podcast, and he's been like, it's so weird. Like, everyone just kind of goes back to the hotel rooms and doesn't go out and party anymore. And I got a feeling a lot of that has to do with Cena, because they saw what Cena was doing at the end of the night, and that was getting a good night's sleep so he can wake up first thing in the morning and do press and meet kids for Make-A-Wish and stuff. And they saw him and went, oh, he's getting pushed for doing that, and he's getting a lot more publicity for it. Maybe I should start doing that. And now we've got what the older generation has coined the video game generation of WWE, where they're just going back to their hotel rooms and playing video games and hanging out. I don't see a problem with that. I do feel that if you were the older generation, it is something that is very different, but I think it's a better product because of it, because again, they can go do other things and not just sit around. And let's be honest, we live in a cell phone world now. You can't go to a bar and act a fool and not get it recorded. And then it looks bad on the company and it looks bad on you. And then you might get fired. You don't want to put yourself in that position. So I think John really helped with that. And this next point, I love how people don't realize this in a marketing world. And again, I know I'm a marketer, so I understand this a little better than others. But this John Cena, as I've said, is one of the most consistent persons. And the financial upside that he has brought to the WWE is so staggering. It is like, everyone loves to point out the NWO t-shirts and the Austin 316 t-shirts are the best-selling t-shirts ever and are still some of the best-selling t-shirts that WWE has ever done. 100%. But the genius of John Cena and the marketing team for WWE is so brilliant. Because every time John Cena would come back, at least once a year, John would have a new t-shirt. Which meant, when you're a kid, you wanted to buy a new t-shirt because you wanted to have the most current t-shirt for John Cena. And not only did you want the most current t-shirts, you had the most current t-shirt, you had the most current hat, you had the most current wristbands, you had the most current headband. So you're not only selling a t-shirt, you're selling a hat, you're selling a wristband, 2 wristbands, and an armband combo. I'm telling you, when I went to WWE when I went to the Elimination Chamber Superstore when he was here earlier the year for John's final appearance in Toronto, the only thing sold out was the John Cena t-shirt. I didn't even end up getting a t-shirt because I went on the Saturday and they were already sold out by that point. I got a hat. But it wasn't just the scalpers and people collecting the shirts. Every kid that I saw had the t-shirt, had the hat, and had the armbands. So you have all these things selling, and then, not just that, if you have all this new gear, well, then we have to make a new action figure for him too. So now we have to make an action figure, and now we have to make another action figure and another one, and the kid's going to want the new action figure every single day. It's bloody brilliant that they were able to do it this well, and no one really thought about it. John Cena had a shirt that said John Cena sucks on it, and it sold amazing when it came out. And the amount of people who probably bought that shirt and were like, yeah, I don't want to support Cena, but I'm going to buy this t-shirt that says Cena sucks on it. Guess where the money was going, dude? It's going to John. Brilliant, brilliant marketing. And again, with the consistency of John always being there, he was able to do it year after year after year after year. It's even just this past year, every stop he had new t-shirts and new wristbands and new hats for every single stop, which was great. And he's even admitted there were other dates that were planned, and because production and all that stuff takes forever, it's not like they could announce, I'm doing, next year's my final year, here's my dates, and they start building stuff then. No. That stuff takes years to build. So he's come out and said, we've started playing this in 2022. We had to have runway to get that stuff done by 2023. Because with all those things, and this is going to the marketing side of it, with all those stadiums and all those new shirts that were coming out, they all were themed around usually the sports teams in the area. Well, when you're going to be using sports teams, colors and stuff like that, you need approval of the sports teams to use that. If you're a Toronto fan, recently when the Blue Jays were in the playoffs, a restaurant in the area used the Blue Jays logo on their marketing, and the Blue Jays went, don't use that because that shows a partnership if you use their logo. So if WWE wanted to use the colors of the teams, they needed to get approval of that. So that was all stuff that was worked out beforehand. And John came out and said that there are 17 shows that he was planning on doing that got moved or scrapped or whatever. So there are 17 sets of t-shirts, hats, wristbands, all that stuff, that shows that never happened, but they were themed to cities. I think Houston, he said, was one. I think he said Atlanta was one of them. So he's trying to get all that stuff released by Fanatics, who does all their merchandising. So now he's going to retire. Fanatics is stupid to not say yes, because they just have to print it whenever an order comes in. He's going to have 17 more shirts, hats, and wristbands and stuff while he's retired. That is going to make him a whole ton of money. So fucking brilliant. And as I said earlier, with the polarizing of John Cena, we had the kid hero of John Cena, which had all the merchandise and wanted everything John Cena. And then you had the fans like me, not me specifically because I love John, but the older fans who wanted something edgier, who grew up in the Attitude Era. And that was the fun of going to watch John Cena in, the 2010 era, because you'd go to an arena, John would come out with the Babadoo, and you'd have half the audience screaming, throwing the babies in the air, and you'd half the people flipping him off. And especially at the ECW One Night Stand 2006, I believe it was, when he's just getting flipped off the whole show. Well, he was in hostile territory because it was ECW, but that was something that I think was very interesting, because you really did have a split of the women loved him because, well, he's a pretty good looking guy. You had the kids loving him because they wanted to be John Cena. And then you had my generation of fans who were just like, drink a beer, flip someone off. Like it was really interesting to see. And like I said earlier, they could have changed him. They easily could have changed him. But when you're selling that much merch and you've got that much of a fan base that there's literally nobody in the arena sitting on their hands, everybody's reacting in some way, you can't deny how great that is. There's not many performers that that were able to pull that off. Austin had all cheers. Rock for the most part had all cheers. But having someone have that split and have it an equal split, that was pretty darn cool to see. And similar to Rock in his transition to Hollywood, I had a feeling that John would go in that direction at some point, seeing as, he has a pretty good looking face and Hollywood likes big guys with a good looking face. Going into the movies, I love that recently he talked about, I think it was Chris Van Vliet's podcast a couple weeks ago, or the week before last week. He talked about his movie career, and I think a lot of people, especially a lot of WWE fans, remember the Marine movie was his kind of first big breakout role. But after that, he really didn't have a ton of good stuff. He really floundered there for a while, and it wasn't until what was the comedy he was in with, I want to say Amy Poehler. It's not Amy Poehler, but it wasn't until 2018, 2017 that he really started to get some good acting roles and was able to kind of get his foot in the door where he needed to. I think Rock kind of, I want to say, gave the impression that all WWE guys would kind of have that rocket ship trajectory, but John floundered for a bit, and he's admitted he kind of deserved it because he wasn't as good as he had thought he was, or that a lot of WWE was projecting him to be. But I think he's definitely gotten a lot better with, the Peacemaker stuff. Ricky Stenicki is a great movie. If you've not seen Ricky Stenicki on, I think it's Amazon Prime, it is a funny movie, and I didn't think it'd be as funny as it is. He plays a Hollywood, sort of a Las Vegas celebrity that really isn't that great. And there's a group of guys who have sort of a pact that if they ever want to get away with something, Ricky Stenicki, who is an old high school friend of theirs, has stuff to do, so that allows them to go off. They could just tell their wives, "I'm going to see Ricky," and they have this whole backstory with them, and then they finally realize their wives have to meet Ricky Stenicki, and they find John, and John becomes Ricky Stenicki, and it's actually a really, really funny movie. He's some of the lines John pulls is actually really, really good. Daddy's Home, as Marcy said, is another great movie that he's in. I've seen the first one. I haven't seen the second one yet. But with the Peacemaker and, kind of, funny enough, I think he's probably the most well-known person in the DC universe right now, and he hasn't really done a ton of it. He's only done 2 seasons of a TV show. It is really bringing WWE to the forefront him, Batista are really holding that WWE flag of not every wrestler is going to be, the Hulk Hogan of Suburban Commando, and The Rock is good, but I think Rock is good in certain roles. I don't think Rock is as great across the board as he thinks he is and WWE thinks he is. I've seen clips of The Smashing Machine, and I'm not excited to see that movie at all. I got a feeling he's going to win an award for it, though. Whatever. But I think Dave and John have kind of held that flag of like, man, WWE wrestlers can kind of do some pretty good stuff. David in chat says John succeeded in what he wanted to do. Look at the heat Gunther is taking. Yeah, he is. He's good. He's good at giving Gunther that heat. And I'm glad Gunther's going to run. Hopefully, as of tonight, Gunther's going to run with it. And I think going back with John and kind of handling that fame and what he's been able to do with it, it really shows the character of John. And I think that's something that really needs to be applauded, because there have been several WWE superstars over the years who have had that spotlight and have been the face of the company and have done so many amazing things for WWE. Like, I'm not putting down The Rock, I'm not putting down Hogan, I'm not putting down anybody that has become the face of the WWE or any wrestling company at that point. But John's professionalism, his schedule of, like I said, going to bed early, getting up, doing press all day, going and doing Make-A-Wish, going media, doing all these things, and then also having a full-time schedule. Like, there, by the way, folks, for those who aren't big WWE fans, John did 36 dates this year. He did 36 dates in his final year as an active wrestler in WWE. He's said recently on a podcast, he was expecting to do a full schedule. Like, he was expecting to do 200 dates. And that would have been nuts. That would have been nuts at his age. He's 48, and he's going, I'm willing to do 200 plus dates in a year. Like, I don't see many WWE talent doing that, even younger than John. So the way he has handled not only the fame of it, but also everything that comes along with being the guy for WWE for like 20 plus years, hats off to him. Hats off to him, and being able to do that and not get hurt, not really have a bad day, not really being able to, there's no publicity out there of, John shoved someone in a bar or something like that, or John hit on somebody, and he's just, as David says in chat, John's just a good guy. And I think there was somebody who posted on Instagram the video of his tribute, and it said, someone layered over top of it, "We made the right guy famous." And I think that's the best way to say it, is he's a good guy, and he shows that good guys can win. So, what does this mean? What does this mean that after 22 years, John is officially off the road and is no longer in-ring talent? It's interesting. It is a very interesting place that WWE is in, because it's very similar to when John started. It is very similar to when John Cena started. When John started, you still had Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, Triple H, The Rock to a point. You still had a lot of veterans. You didn't have you had lower talent, but not a ton. We're kind of in that world now with WWE. We've got the CM Punks, we've got Cody Rhodes, we've got Roman Reigns, we've got a lot of main talent, but no one's really the figurehead right now. Cody was for a year. He's not really been the past year. Roman was for a little while. He's not anymore. We really don't have a figurehead of the company. And I'm not saying they need it, though. And I think a lot of people think that there needs to be that crown jewel, pun intended, WWE reference. They need to have that one person to run the company. I don't think so. I think in a world now where we've got, how many social media platforms, we have so many channels to watch, so many different ways to get your name out there. I don't think WWE needs that one person anymore. I think they can do it with a group. You've got your Rhea Ripleys for that type of fan. You've got your Charlotte Flairs for that kind of fan. You've got your CM Punks for that type of fan. You've got your Cody Rhodes for the kid fan. You've got all these different people that sort of take each section of your fandom. And each one of them can kind of be lifted at the same time. So I don't think they need a John Cena. And that's a culture thing that we've become that way. But I also think John has been able to showcase and bring light to the WWE as so much over the past 20 years that I don't think they need that person anymore. I think a group of them can do it. David said, could it be Gunther? It has been a while since we've had a heel champ. I think we can have a heel champ. 100% we can have a heel champ. And I think Gunther could do it. I think Gunther did it when he was world champ. But I'm speaking more of that generational talent. Like you had your Hogans that were, the figurehead of the company for a certain amount of time. You had your Bret Harts for a little while. Then you had your Stone Colds. Then you had Rock, and then you had Triple H to a point. Then you had Cena up until a certain point. Then you had Roman, who once you hit that Roman Cody Rhodes era, Roman Lesnar around that era, it sort of became. You didn't need that figurehead anymore. You had a whole group of people, and especially now, I don't think you need it. I think you're good with a group. I think the people who like Rhea Ripley will tune in to watch Rhea Ripley. I think the people who want to watch the kids who want to be Cody Rhodes and have the big jackets and stuff. I think you have that. I think if you want pure wrestling, you've got your Seth Rollins, you've got your CM Punks. If you want your high flying, you've got your AJs, you've got your Dragon Lees. You've got all these people, and in a world now where you can find anything, anywhere, and everything is so easily digestible, we have a generation now who probably has no interest in watching a 9 to 5, 7 to 9, whatever, wrestling show. I think we're coming into a generation that is perfectly fine going onto a YouTube, going on to a Netflix, and fast forwarding or just watching their favorite superstar and going, okay, you want to watch the Cody Rhodes match? Let's watch the Cody Rhodes match. Cool. Boom. Fast forward. Cody Rhodes is again. Cool. We'll watch that. Boom. Done. So I don't think you're going to have that figurehead. I think your people are going to fall in love with these different characters, and it's all going to the high tide will raise all boats. And I think you're going to have a whole generation that's just going to love their certain superstars, and who will find other superstars through the interaction of the superstars that they like. That's just my thought. I could be wrong. Maybe there is a talent sitting there in the wings who is going to take WWE by storm, and he's going to be the next John Cena. Who knows?